I shall personally miss you.
Goodbye, Geordi. I shall miss you at Weapons Systems Analysis.
Aha!
Hello, welcome back. This week in Star Trek Sodium, we have the classic episode from Star Trek Next Generation Series 2, The Samaritan Snare. In The Samaritan Snare, Captain Picard leaves the ship to have some important surgery, but meanwhile, the Enterprise crew comes across a ship of devious Pakleds. This Hensing episode introduces the classic Star Trek humanoids, the Pakleds. It was originally insinuated that the Pakleds were created because Gene Roddenberry wanted an alien creation that looked virtually the same as Rick Berman, a lasting memorial by Gene of his favourite co-creator. This kind gesture would ensure that generations to follow would unwittingly see Rick Berman in his creation for years to come, whether they knew it or not. A strange kind of immortality that Gene had bestowed upon Berman out of respect. When Patrick Stewart read the script for The Samaritan Snare, he noticed that the Pakleds were stupid and ignorant. From that, he realised that they were a lot like his neighbours in London, a family called the Fussingtons. So when he was about to speak to the Pakleds in the episode, he simply imagined he was dealing with the Fussingtons, and that's why his reactions and delivery to them is so perfectly timed and performed. So you really should check out his scene with the Pakleds towards the end of the episode. It's marvellous!
Still here.
Make us strong.
I thought you wanted me to help you go. Why don't we work on that guidance system, okay?
Other names for the Pakleds that the writer Robert McCulloch came up with before he settled on the name the Pakleds were the Samaritans, the Romuloids, Frownermites, the Makleds, the Gemyonards, the Butlins, the Stoigs, and the Sargs. The name that he decided on, though, was the Pakleds, and that's what they're called in this episode. Rumour has it that both Denise Cosby and Gates McSomething found Jonathan Frakes extremely ugly to look at, and were constantly distracted by him, possibly leading to both of them quitting the show. In order to stop Marina Citrus from quitting too, Rick Berman told Frakes to try growing a beard to make him more appetizing to any female onlookers. Thankfully, Rick Berman's favourite, Marina, didn't quit the show and was joined in Series 2 by fellow woman Dr. Pulaski and also by Guinan. This is why Riker has a beard in the second season, whereas in the first season he doesn't even have one, no matter what.
We've got a man held hostage by alien forces, and all I have are no options. I need some input.
The actor that plays one of the Pakleds was played by actor Michael Ferrari, who allegedly went to school in the 1970s with a young Lever Burton and his cousin Tim. Absolute rivals on the school wrestling team for several years, Lever and Michael Ferrari refused to speak to each other on the soapy set and only exchanged words while filming in the episode because they absolutely had to. This was very similar to the story of Captain Sisko and Solok in Deep Space Nine, only much more grounded in reality. It was around the time of the Samaritan Snare that the science fiction war of 1988 was really starting to heat up. According to sources, Rick Berman had awoken one day to discover the gate of his Hollywood house was blocked by smouldering oil barrels, some empty, some partially filled with the thick slop. The only clue as to their point of origin was a calling card that was stuck to one of the barrels with a picture of Johnny Five sticking his finger up and the Short Circuit 2 director's name signed underneath. Barely able to contain his derangement, Rick Berman swore that he would end this feud no matter the cost and that Star Trek would be victorious. In the war of Star Trek vs. Short Circuit 2, there would only be one winner. While filming Samaritan Snare, the Dr. Pulaski actor allegedly brought in her homemade apple pies in a bid to make everybody happy. She had seen a curious history of every single Star Trek Next Generation Doctor leaving the show after only one season, and she didn't want to be next. Patrick Stewart would later say in an interview that the apple pie was the worst he'd ever had in 100 years, and that included pies baked on the streets by the germ-filled homeless of London. Other acts to try and keep everybody happy about her was to buy everybody cheap snow globes and to perform the most curious dance. "Everybody look at me!" she possibly shouted as she sways around on the set, moving her body to the soundless rhythm in a most unattractive way. Star Trek storyboard artist Lance Ranner had famously approached Rick Berman again with another bold idea. He would produce a new soapy format of episode art that would inspire the youth of today to view a show that they would normally scoff at. A week later, and Lance brought in his finished poster. No original versions of this exist, but based on rumours, it looked exactly like this. Not only did Rick not understand anything about the image at all, but he ordered all copies of the artwork destroyed. He wasn't against Lance trying new things, but he just didn't understand what he was looking at with his crucid eyes. Lance was ordered to continue his good work and to try again for the next episode. Now, during the filming of Samaritan Snare, the final scenes of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, were being filmed only meters away. The Worf actor found it hard to concentrate on his scenes, as he's a devout Christian, and seeing God himself parading around the studio back and forth in front of him became very distracting for him. In the end, Gene Roddenberry had to tell the God actor to stay out of Worf's line of sight so that he could finish filming his Hensing scenes. Brent Spiner, the man who does the Data robot, allegedly remarked to Lever Burton that his visor looked a lot like a boomerang when he held it in his hand in a particular way. Immediately excited by the idea, Lever Burton grasped his visor and threw it. It hit a wall. The visor broke into 1,000,000 pieces. No doubt, if he tried to put the bits back on his face, it would have lacerated his soft eyeballs and scratched his face to the bone. Luckily, there were several spare visor props for the ghastly actor to use for the next scene. Now, those of you with eagle eyes would have surely noticed that the Crusher actor doesn't really appear much in this episode at all. That's because the Crusher actor had actually been extradited to Australia in a bizarre turn of events. The trial would last weeks, but wouldn't impact any of the other episodes beyond this one, as the producers would rely on copious amounts of archive footage of them instead. Thanks for watching my terrific facts about Star Trek Next Generation Series 2's Samaritan Snare, which is the 17th episode. If you can think of any great facts yourself that you remember of this episode, please drop them below in the comments. I'll be ever so happy to learn about that myself, and come back next time. Hopefully I'll get you some more facts about Star Trek and its good episodes and good films and stuff. All the best, and subscribe if you want, otherwise don't. Ta-ta!